Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Haas. And the Burgundy Zone is part of the List of Fred podcast network. You can find out more at www.listoffrederick.com. And we are rejoined by guest Mr. Mathew Paras, writer for the Washington Times. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Monday evening. Matt, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, sir. And the first thing I wanted to get your opinion on was the latest news that came out today. Officially, the Washington Commanders have hired Juan Castillo to be the tight ends coach. Can you kind of go into give us some input into the relationship with Coach Rivera and Castillo? And then how big of a drop-off is it without Pete Hainer, the coach, leaving? Because he's obviously known we league-wide.
Right. Yeah, Rivera and Juan Castillo overlapped in Philadelphia. They've known each other for a long time. And this is kind of a type of hire that Ron Rivera has made. You know, he hires people he knows in a way, also hires qualified people. But, you know, this is a sense of familiarity kind of helping with that transition from the sudden retirement. Now, Juan Castillo hasn't coached tight ends, I believe, since 1997. So, you know, he's been on the offensive line most of his career. Also served as a defensive coordinator for the Eagles a few years last decade. But So, you know, it was surprising in terms of that sense. But, you know, Rivera, his big thing is I need to hire guys I can trust. And, you know, by bringing in Juan Castillo, that's a guy he can trust. And so it should help with the transition from Pete Hainer. But, yeah, as you alluded to, the loss of Pete Hainer is, I think, pretty significant considering how influential he's been on young tight ends' careers.
Yeah, definitely a big loss for the coaching staff, and just in the NFL in general. Like the combine is I guess in a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. There's been a lot of buzz about the agents and their prospects potentially not doing the drills. And can you just go into that and kind of?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good. His mic went out. It happens all the time.
It's all good. Yeah, so it begins next week, and kind of what's the situation there is the NFL sent a memo to kind of the prospects and the agents, and basically what that memo says is, hey, you're only allowed to really bring in one person to do that and to be around the combine, and they're going to have a bubble-like situation. And, you know, a lot of agents raise concerns about that because in the past, you know, how you prepare for the combine is players are surrounded by nutritionists, trainers, kind of guys that help them prepare for these drills. So without having that support system in place, they're worried their clients won't perform as well, which is then in turn won't lead to a higher draft position. So what they're saying is
Sorry, I was letting Reed know he's next. So keep going, Pyre.
Sorry. Sorry. No, my bad on that. So what basically that entails is, you know, they're saying, all right, if you don't ease up on some of these restrictions, we're going to boycott. We're going to not perform until our pro days and stuff like that. So those two sides are negotiating a compromise right now, and we'll see what happens from that. But that's kind of where the situation stands.
You gonna ask a question, Reed? Oh, your mic's not on, by the way. But Paris, my next question for you: Brian McFadden, former DB of the NFL, came out and said that if the Washington is the best team that Russell Wilson could go to, and to be able to compete for a Super Bowl. Do you agree with that assessment?
No, I don't. I'll be honest. I mean, you look at the Eagles and what they've done too, you know, that would be a pretty good situation for him on the Eagles defense. Kind of rebounded this year, and they have a really nice couple of weapons there for him with Devontae Smith. You know, I think Washington would be an attractive option, but you go back to a year ago and you look at the teams on Russell Wilson's list. Washington wasn't on it, but, you know, if the Las Vegas Raiders, which were on it a year ago, would be there, you know, that would be a really appealing situation for him too. So, I think Washington would be an appealing option, but I do look at around the league and say there are some teams objectively maybe a little bit better position.
Right, right. Now that my microphone is finally working, as we know, this is supposed to be a very weak quarterback class in terms of the draft. Which court do you see? I've seen some mock drafts where I see maybe 2 to 3 quarterbacks surprisingly going in the top 10. I don't think that was thought was going to happen just a couple of months ago. Do you see a few quarterbacks rising, and do you think that there could very well be 2 or 3 quarterbacks going inside the top 10?
You know, we'll just have to see in terms of that. It has really been just kind of some how this normally works in a weak year is we've seen teams fall in love with their guys, right?
And overvalue the position.
Yes. And so, you think of that Jake Locker draft, Christian Ponder, like those type of guys. And so, I think a quarterback could go in the top 10 to, ESPN's mock draft I was looking at, they have 3 quarterbacks in the top 20. So, maybe it happens, but it just, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of fall down the steps too, because there's really there's no team in the top 10 really that needs a quarterback except maybe the Panthers.
Right. Yeah, possibly Denver as well.
Yes, Denver.
And that's other than that, it's tough.
It's really kind of open.
Yeah, definitely. And sticking with the quarterbacks, the big Twitter buzz over the weekend was that it was reported that there was maybe a deal in place for Deshaun Watson, and maybe Chase Young was involved with that. Then everyone came out and said that was false. Do you think that Washington would maybe offer Chase Young into a deal if there was a high-level quarterback and the other team was asking for him, or do you think he's part of that off the no trade off that list?
Look, I don't think any player would be off the table, but it would have to be, it would have to be overwhelming. I think Washington, and I think, not reporting, but I think they would rather trade multiple draft picks and say a first round and Chase Young. If you're just looking at the cost analysis of it, they really want to keep Chase Young. They're still pretty high on him, even though he did have a disappointing year last year. So, I would be shocked if Chase Young wasn't here next year, but that's kind of where things stand.
Yeah, and then the Twitter sphere went crazy last week because it got taken out of context. Ben Standig, when he did his mailbag questions for one of his articles or his podcast, and they took what he had answered to a fan and said it like, this is exactly the no list. There's only a handful here. So let me ask you, Matt, who's on your no trade list for Washington?
Yeah, I think Chase Young would probably be on there, but I think Terry McLaurin would be number 1. Besides that, I mean, even a guy like Jonathan Allen, who I think is phenomenal, if you're talking about a quarterback or anything like that, you have to consider it. Like for Washington, you look at their roster and where kind of things stand is they have a lot of talent on the defensive line. So if you can part with one of those guys and help offset the costs of a quarterback, then, I think you seriously have to consider it. But, I think Terry McLaurin is there. Chase Young, but there aren't too many guys that I think would really make a lot of sense for saying, all right, we have to absolutely keep them.
Right. Now, I guess you could technically say this past season was a disappointment. I mean, Washington did finish 7-10, but compared to the season before where they won the NFC East, they had all these expectations. They're considered so deep and talented. They kind of underperformed a little bit, I guess you could say. Do you think that if Ron Rivera has another season similar to that, granted last season they did have the number one, the hardest schedule in the NFL, if you think that they kind of don't play up the expectations again this year, do you think Ron Rivera will be on the hot seat, or do you think he's going to play out those 5 years of his contract?
Well, we'll have to see. I think a lot of that depends on what they do this offseason at quarterback. If he has a vision to sell and a few, even if they draft someone, I know that's not an ideal scenario for a lot of fans, but if they draft someone, if that rookie looks good and is making good progress, if they don't make the playoffs, then maybe there is something to build upon there. But, he set the expectations for them to take a big leap in year 3. And by doing that, you risk the backlash that comes with it. And if it's not just a fan backlash, but how is Dan Snyder going to react? Snyder hasn't really been patient with coaches outside of Jay Gruden. Yeah. Jay Gruden, he had 2 winning seasons in his first 3 years. So, I think for Rivera to buy time, he would need probably another winning season this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. What was my question gonna be? Oh, okay. So everyone just kind of pretty much has it like at a lock that Washington's gonna draft a quarterback at their with their first round pick if they don't make a trade for one of these guys or sign one of these guys in free agency. Is it out of the realm to say that maybe that there's a plan that they don't go quarterback with that number overall pick, and then possibly draft a guy like Desmond Ritter in the second round, or maybe do like a Lamar Jackson style type of thing where they trade back into the first round and get a guy with that fifth year option, or is it pretty much just locked in that if they don't get a veteran guy this offseason that they're taking a quarterback with the first round pick?
Yeah, you could. It's never say never. I mean, if they were to do the second round thing, I could see them adding someone like, Mitchell Trubisky. He's been mentioned a lot with these guys and doing that sort of thing, the reclamation project, and then also taking a quarterback later in the draft, and then with Taylor Heineke. So, they have a lot of options they can go to, but it also, you don't draft in the top 10 or I guess 11 in their case that often, or you shouldn't want to. So if you have a quarterback and you're convinced that he's the guy, then I think it makes sense to stay there and grab him, even if it's not a great quarterback draft, because one of these guys, more likely than not, will hit. It's just a matter of which one will do so.
Yeah, I agree with you on that aspect, Matt. And my next question for you, one player that has been talked about a lot with this fan base is Landon Collins. He had a great year, a bounce-back year, filling into his new role. But I've seen some theories about actually saving some cap space, and Landon Collins' name continues to come around. So what would you do? Would you cut, trade, or stay with Landon Collins for 2022?
It's a tough question. I think I would first approach him about a restructure, see if he would be open to that. If he's not, well then, I think you would have to seriously look at moving on. I mean, credit to him. I think he was honest about not wanting to play that position, but performed it at a very high level. But he still wants to play safety, and I think if he sees an avenue to possibly do that, even if it's somewhere else on less money, I think he would probably jump at that chance. So, I think a parting of the ways makes sense if a salary restructure isn't agreed upon. But look, Landon Collins is a very productive player after they found that right role for him, and there's that injury history concern as well. But personally, from a media standpoint, I hope we don't lose Landon Collins. He's phenomenal to talk to, so
okay,
I'll be rooting for him to stay. But
it's almost one of those things where it's like, Landon, my dad made me give up on my dreams of being a male model, early on. You just got to let it go. You're not going to be a safety. You're not built for it, but look at me now, Dad. Look at me now. But anyway, so Washington has a lot of players that were key contributors over the last few seasons that are pending free agents. Who do you think is the most important player to resign, or who would you target to make sure you get that contract done?
For this upcoming
Yes, yeah.
Of the guys who are going to be free agents.
Yes, yeah.
So I'd probably start with J.D. McKissick, either that or Bobby McCain. I mean, I'll say Bobby McCain because I think safeties in a vacuum are probably more valuable than running backs. And Bobby McCain he really grew into that role the last half of the season. I thought he really struggled those first couple of weeks, but 3 of his 4 interceptions came after the bye week, 2 in the last week, and he really grew into a solid player for them on the back end. I think it helped stabilize a lot of their issues in that area. And then, J.D. McKissick is really important to them, just in what they wanted to do. And after he got hurt, their offense really suffered. So I think those 2 guys, I know they've tried to lock them up before free agency, and we'll see if deals get done. But I think those 2 are the highest on the priority for them.
Real fast, especially if they get a young rookie quarterback, J.D. McKissick is going to be huge for whomever that is.
Right, and this is just assuming, of course, that Brandon Sheriff is leaving.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
In the vacuum, you would want to lock up your
all pro
guard.
Yeah.
But, that ship, I think most people have realized. So.
Yeah. According to Logan Paulson, some people that he's talked to he told us that he knows some people that have talked to Brandon. He just wants to be closer to home, he thinks. So pretty much done.
Yeah, with free agency coming up towards the next middle of the month, 3 4 weeks away from now, do you think that Washington's going to be very active in free agency, or do you think it's going to be more of the kind of the lower tier guys, maybe like when they went the Logan Thomas, the J.D. McKissick route, or something like that, or you think that they're going to go out and try to be big spenders and make big splashes?
Well, they have the money to do so if they want to, but you kind of have to look at the situation. I think it really just depends on what happens with the quarterback. You know, they need to figure out that position first before they go really spending elsewhere. I think they're going to address moves on the margin, like middle linebacker. Rivera has really talked about wanting to get a veteran in there. I think they realize that Jamin Davis is probably suited better on the outside. So, you look at the guys around the league, whether that's bringing John Bostic back or, Denver's Alexander Johnson, someone like that. I think they'll bring a veteran in to the middle there, and I think adding another wide receiver makes sense, whether that's through the draft. But Cam Sims is a free agent, and he's their tallest receiver. They don't really have that many tall receivers outside of Cam Sims. The other guys are like 6 feet tall, so I think it makes sense to add some size as well, especially with Logan Thomas hurt at tight end.
Did you have one more, Hall? You had your finger up.
Yeah, my bad. I was gonna ask him what positions you think they're gonna target like heavily, but he just answered that.
Oh, okay, perfectly. And now to wrap this up, Paris, Mary Jo, she was hired by the NFL to investigate the sexual assault claims by a former employee of the Washington Redskins. So, what do you think is going to happen? Can you kind of explain, for in layman's terms, what this investigation is? It's not into the entire investigation, but only into the claims, right?
Right. So what happened, how this kind of all got started was there was a former employee. She worked as a cheerleader and a marketing manager for Washington. And during this month's congressional roundtable, as part of Congress's investigation, this employee, her name's Tiffany Johnston, she testified that Dan Snyder made unwanted sexual advances toward her at a dinner, either in 2005 or six. And so because she didn't participate in the previous investigation that the NFL did with Beth Wilkinson's report, because she didn't participate in that, they're launching a new investigation into these claims. And in doing so, they've hired now another investigator. And this is the investigator that looked into the Carolina Panthers case with Jerry Richardson, who opted to sell the team, and then also was involved in Bountygate. So she's a very experienced investigator, and so we'll see what happens there. But that's kind of where things stand with that.
How long do you expect this investigation to go? Obviously, you wouldn't know because you're not an investigator, but obviously investigating these claims more in like a detailed format rather than an entire investigation like Beth Wilkinson. Do you expect it to be brief?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, with Richardson, it took about 5 months.
Okay.
That was more of an organizational thing. The NFL has a history of dropping news right before a holiday weekend, so maybe we'll get something in July again, right before 4th, but, something like that. And the thing I think that's worth mentioning too, even though I mentioned the Panthers thing, just because the NFL hired their lead investigator for that case doesn't mean necessarily Dan Snyder's on his way out, because if you look at that Carolina situation, Jerry Richardson agreed to sell the team before Mary Jo White was hired.
Okay.
So the NFL still conducted the investigation, but this owner was already on the way out. So, just looking at the situation, I think don't jump to a conclusion that Dan Snyder's got to automatically be forced out just because this is happening.
Wishful thinking for much of the fan base, Matthew. I can't thank you enough for coming on here and joining us, sir. Real quick, before you get out of here, just in case there's people watching and want to come follow you on Twitter and social media, if you'd like to plug in your handles.
Yeah, you can follow me at Mathew_Paras, Paras. It's like the city, but with an A instead of an I. And yeah, you can just follow me there and click on the Washington Times website as well, washingtontimes.com/sports. You can find all my writing there.
My man, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Paris, like the city. I like that, sir. You have a good night, Matt. Enjoy your Monday and enjoy the offseason. Hopefully we'll get some answers here about the Combine soon. Thank you, Matt. You have a good night.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with Matt Paras. That was a lot of fun to be able to speak with Matt again.
Yeah, definitely give some good insight. Definitely some good opinionated takes.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to our fan questions, and we got to start with the one and the only, the Colonel, who we just went and saw on Saturday. Went and made a little trip, and that was a lot of fun to be able to go hang out with the Colonel for a couple hours and to see Cash. But his first question is: besides Terry and Curtis Samuel, are there any other wide receivers a lock on our roster next season?
Uh, I'd probably say maybe Dax Milne, just because you saw that he became like a small contributor towards the end of the season right there, and then they need that kind of that slot guy that can kind of fill in the role for Curtis Samuel. Hopefully, he doesn't go down with the injury again. But I'm not saying he can step in and be Curtis Samuel, but he can be a serviceable kind of that Adam Humphries guy where he's third and short, third and long, get you that first down that you need. Um, yeah, outside of those three, I would probably say DeAndre Carter, even though he's more of a specialist guy. But you saw what he could do in the passing game when called upon. Definitely quite serviceable as far as like maybe that fourth, fifth receiver on our offense. So yeah, outside of those four, like you said, Cam Sims is a free agent, so unfortunately he'll probably walk because for whatever reason this coaching staff just like didn't want to play him as much. But yeah, outside of those four, I don't think that there's a lock per se.
Yeah, I think DeAndre Carter, for one, is obviously one you hit it on a hole with what he did at return. Was incredible this season, and that's a position that they were very heavily trying to be able to replenish and do well with. DeAndre Carter did that, but the other one I'll say is Adam Humphries. I thought he was very productive, especially on third downs, late downs, and stuff. So I think that Adam Humphries brings that kind of veteran leadership, almost like a Cole Beasley type to the quarterback position. I know Taylor leaned on him heavily at times. So I think Adam Humphries would be the other lock. What do you think, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, you guys both DeAndre Carter, Adam Humphries for me, but I'll throw another name out there that I don't think he's as much of a lock as people think, though, and that's De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown, he really needs to show a lot more. I mean, he's got all the skills. We all know what he can bring to the table, but I know he was a third-round pick, but I mean, if he doesn't get on the field, if he doesn't produce, if he doesn't show what he can do, I mean, there's no room for him.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, the Colonel's next question, Reed, I'll stick with you. He says, in the last episode, you touched briefly on trade-back scenarios to get more picks and still be able to get a premier player. Would you mind expanding on that a bit? Speculate on who could fall to us the way that CeeDee Lamb fell to the Cowboys a couple years ago.
Ooh, that's tough. Because yeah, I mean, obviously you want to get as many picks as you can. Especially we only have 6 picks this year, so trading back, there's always a good player that falls. I mean, you look at past drafts, like when Jonathan Allen fell to us, we didn't think we'd have a chance for him. Brian Arakpo was the same thing. People don't remember that. Arakpo was supposed to be a top 5 pick. I mean, I could honestly, I know it hasn't been popular in mock drafts, and I don't think he will fall very far, but I could see Derek Stingley falling maybe right to 14, 15, something like that, somewhere inside the top 15. Some people have him as a top 3 pick, and he's very talented, but I think Sauce Gardner is going to end up being that number 1 corner in this draft. I mean, the guy hasn't allowed a touchdown his entire NFL career, or his entire college career. And he's got the size. He's 6'3".
13 yards last
year. Like, it's just unreal. So, I mean, obviously we have the combine, but I could see Derek Stingley falling a little bit. He hasn't really learned the nuances of the position. He's super athletic, but he's got a long way to go.
Yeah, hey, Hall, can you expand on that a little bit on the stats that you saw from Ahmad Gardner, the cornerback from Cincinnati?
Yeah, Ahmad Gardner, everyone calls him Sauce. Gardner, Sauce. Like you said, Cincinnati cornerback. Phil Yates, I think, tweeted out.
He's like 6'2", 6'3",
Yeah,
long
6'2".
arms.
He's listed as 6'3", so he'll be 6'2", because college.
Long arm guy, kind of like a Richard Sherman type mold, where long arms, athletic, more athletic than Richard Sherman. But yeah, the stat was his entire college football career, he did not allow a touchdown. Now people will come back and be like, oh well, he played in the AAC, which is not a lot of like talented wide receivers. Not go against the top tier talent. My rebuttal would be they went against Alabama this year. They played against Notre Dame. They played some big boys in the top 5, those Power 5 conferences. And on top of that, this past season, he didn't allow a pass on him longer than 13 yards, which is just
ridiculous.
Unbelievably
What
ridiculous.
more do you want a cornerback in that conference to do than not allow a touchdown or a pass
I
longer
mean,
than 13 yards? Like, he did the job. You can't use if he's playing against those receivers, he should dominate like he did.
Yeah,
and
and
then some.
Right.
on Friday, I was on here. I think Scott Hartley had asked like what position you want besides quarterback, obviously, and I said corner because I want that lockdown guy to a number like a not a Darrelle Revis type, but on that kind of level where you can
Well,
say
I would love a Darrelle Revis type.
right, exactly, but like you know what I mean, and that's what kind of Ahmad Gardner brings. But Colonel, going back to your question of trading back and who could possibly fall, I think one of those wide receivers is there, like Treylon Burks. Jameson Williams, obviously, because of the injury that happened, we don't know how far he is going to drop. I wouldn't expect him to be selected in the top 10, especially with his injury history. If you're going to pick in the top 10, you want somebody that can contribute right away. And so I think Jameson Williams is somebody that could fall back into that later in the first round. But what you're looking for is a team in that back end of the first round that would be wanting to move up and to be able to go get a quarterback, and the Steelers are one that come to mind. I know Kevin Colbert came out today, said Mason Rudolph is their starter at quarterback, so it kind of tells you what they're kind of looking at that position like. 'Cause it's not looking too good. That guy has a dent in his head still from the Myles Garrett situation. You know
That's
what I mean?
one of those things where who was it? Was it Jay Gruden who would say something like that? He'd be like, "No, right now our quarterback is, whoever it was," and it was somebody that's terrible, and it was like, well, that's obviously because you guys haven't done it. Free agency hasn't even started yet, so yeah.
Yeah, there's already been rumors that the Steelers are interested in Malik Willis since the Senior Bowl. So.
Yeah, oh yeah, they apparently love him.
All right, so before we get to our next fan question, our next guest here, I wrote into our Discord chat server to all of our loyal contributors to the show, and I said, look, I have a question for you guys, and we'll say the answers live on air. If the Burgundy Zone boys were on the Commanders, which player would we be? And so the first one to answer is Jeff Miles. He said, I got Hall being DeAndre Carter, Reed being Holcomb, and Kyle being Ron. Hall seems like the quiet yet valuable underdog that brings up good points. Reed seems like the life of the party, and that just seems like it would be like with Cole Holcomb and his mullet if you went out. And Kyle is Ron because he seems like the head honcho, making the team is right on track. Well, I appreciate that.
I was about to say, he's not. It's all a facade. I'm actually the one who puts together everything. I get all the gas. I run the show. I tell Kyle what to say. So, but
100% true. And this is why Tony Shivers replied, and I think it was the most perfect one. Even Jeff agreed with it. But Tony Shivers says, Kyle equals Jonathan Allen, leader, respect the military, doesn't put up with BS. Hall equals Cam Curl, a smooth brother. Produces, says dressing and not stuffing. I thought that was hilarious. This last one is Reed equals Curtis Samuel. Great contributor, not always available.
Never was there. That's actually a valid point. Yeah,
dude, I thought that was perfect, man. But I'm gonna run that out to you guys, everyone watching. Who do you guys
Scott
think?
Hartley had one too. Scott Hartley posted one on Twitter.
Oh yes, he did. Who did he say? Do you remember what it was?
I gotta pull it up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in this scenario you were Cole Holcomb, Kyle. Let me pull this up.
Oh yes. I was Cole Holcomb.
Oh, no, I got it right here. I got it right here. All right, Kyle is Cole Holcomb, solid and runs the operation. Old dad was Logan Thomas, who does the dirty work but comes out with a game winner every now and then. I think I come up with a few more game winners than that every now and then. I try like 15 times a show.
You're right.
And Mike Hall, Cam Sims, underrated, reliable, gives 100% and can be a game winner. Hey, Hall likes that one. Hall's a Cam Sims guy.
A Hall
Sims fan, I'll take that.
Hall, I just want to say in my defense, when I wrote on there, the example I wrote was you as AG. I tried getting everyone to say that you were AG, Hall. They just wouldn't bite it, dude. I'm sorry, man.
Good. It's all good.
Yes. Now, our next question is from Jeff Miles in the Discord chat server. It's a fun one. Which commander would do the best on the Washington Wizards? And which wizard would do the best on the Commanders? Hall, I'll start with you because you like your basketball.
Oh, that's a tough one. I will go with. I'd probably say Logan Thomas. I feel like he could use his size. He looks like a big power forward. Obviously he has ups. So I'm gonna assume he can probably dunk. So he looks like he has a little bit of a basketball game to him. And then vice versa, I would go. Probably same position. I'll go Rui Hachimura. I feel like he'd be could maybe like make the transfer to tight end. Kind of a big body guy, has a little bit of ups, and he can definitely maybe fill out that tight end role.
I would say Montez Sweat would probably do the best for the Wizards. We've seen him go up and block those balls and have good hands as well, being able to catch it. So I think that he'd be like a perfect kind of shooting guard, and if not power forward. I don't think he's tall enough for it. He's like 6'4", right? So that's like normal for the NBA. And
That's like a small shooting guard.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'll say that. And then I'll say Kyle Kuzma. I think that he would be a very, very good wide receiver for this team. I think that he has that it factor about him. He's done very well for the Wizards as of late. Who would you say, Reed? What is one player that could on the Commanders that could go to the Wizards and do well, and one player from the Wizards to the Commanders?
So this is going to be a bit of a cop-out. But I'm going to go with Terry, just because you look at Terry go out there. I mean, I feel like I would trust Terry in any situation where athletics are played, just because the guy gets it. Hey, he would be a point guard at his size, 6'1", 6'2". So hey, I would take that. But then I was going to go with Roy Hachimura as well. However, I will switch it up, and I almost wanted to go with Bradley Beal, but then I was like, if I pick Bradley Beal and Terry, like what kind of a poser answer would that be?
Right.
So I'm gonna go with Thomas Bryant. Stick him at defensive end and let him work. Maybe he'd see the field.
That's a good one. And now we are joined by our next guest for the first time ever, the QB guru himself that Hall has nominated you, Mr. Michael Haas. Thank you for joining us tonight, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Cannot complain, brother. And look, I want to go to this. We have a question from Tony Shivers. I'm going to go around round table, but Michael, I want you to answer it first. Tony asks, who would you want the Commanders to draft from your favorite college team?
From my favorite college team. I mean, Demas from Maryland.
Okay, I can rock with that. I can rock with Demas. For Virginia Tech, I have to be careful here. I would love to have Trey Turner, but I'll go with James Mitchell, the tight end who got injured this year, is a kind of athletic freak. But besides that, Brock Hoffman. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Just draft any of the Hokies. I would love any one of those dudes.
What about Smith, the guard?
Yeah, Letitia Smith. Yeah.
Letitia Smith, yeah.
There you go. See, Michael's got it all up ready to go. What about you, Hall? Who do you want from Michigan?
Well, the obvious answer.
Jawan Howard.
Yeah, I know, right? You see him got them long arms. He could Davis.
Seriously.
Yeah, but he palm slaps.
The obvious pick would be Aiden Hutchinson, even though he was kind of getting manhandled in that Georgia game when Michigan versus Georgia, when he was going up against like actual NFL talent. But I think that he can transition pretty solidly to the NFL, and I feel like he could be maybe like a Ryan Kerrigan. Like his ceiling could be Ryan Kerrigan type in the NFL, which is not bad. So I go Aiden Hutchinson.
I know you would love to get Aiden Hutchinson. I was thinking you were going to go with Daxton Hill. To be honest.
Yeah, I like Daxton.
I love Daxton. I love Daxton.
That was going to be my second pick.
It's a little
known the
fact.
read route. I was just the low hanging.
Yeah. It's a bit of a cop out because I'm not even necessarily I just like college football. I don't really have a favorite team, but I've always followed Maryland too. So I'm gonna go with Nick Cross, the safety out of Maryland. I think that he could be a good mid to late round pick for us.
Yeah. It's a good one. It's a very good one. Now, this is a question from Yamstarch in our Discord chat server, Michael, but I want to bring this up to you. He asks, so this is a 3-way trade deal I heard about last night / this morning. If you're going to give up all of that in a multi-team deal to get Russ and Seattle gets Watson, why not just deal directly with Houston and get Watson?
I would. I would if we were giving up that much. I mean, I think the trade package that they said was 3 firsts, a second, and Payne.
Yeah.
Nah, I would go straight to the cow and get Watson.
Yeah.
You'll go straight to Kyle. I heard you. I heard what you said. Yeah, come over to me. No, but I agree with you, Yam. It doesn't make any sense. I wrote this in the Discord chat server. If there's going to be a 3-way trade deal, I don't think it's going to be in the format that they are putting it. If there's going to be anything like that, it's going to be Washington trading away a player for picks in order to use that pick that they acquired from that trade, in order to couple that with picks that they're offering for another quarterback. I could see that happening rather than a 3-team trade, because to your point, Yamsarch, it does not make any sense just to have a 3-team trade just so Seattle and Houston can move quarterbacks there. It doesn't make any sense to me as well. What do you think, Reed?
The only way that would go down, maybe even similar to that, and either way I think that compensation is a little ridiculous, would be if Deshaun Watson just straight up said he's not going to DC, if he just blocked that and wouldn't do it. But yeah, I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. you look at it and we're like, okay, so we are paying for Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson in this scenario. Okay, cool. Yep.
That's
Sounds good.
exactly how I looked at it. And what do you think, Hall? Do you think we should just straight up trade for Watson in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You definitely even without taking all the extra stuff added in and what it would cost. I mean, at that point, you would like pay that much for the younger quarterback in the situation anyway, which is Deshaun Watson. So, and I think he's more talented right now than Russell Wilson in his point in career. So, we go with the more talented, less aged quarterback.
Yep, I'm with you 110%. Optics is out the window at this point. We're already at the bare bottom. You know what I mean? Our next question is from our guy Paul Murphy in the UK. Oi! And this is going to go to you first, Michael. Our first round pick is at 11. If we trade the pick, would you prefer trading up or down? If so, who would be worth trading up for? And which players could you see being of value later in the first round if we decide to trade down?
So I love that question from my UK brother. Trading up, there's only one quarterback I would trade up for, and that's Malik Willis. And that's because of his extreme ability. So not saying that he's more ready, because he's not more ready than Pickett when it comes to the natural essence of being a quarterback at that type of level. But
the it factor.
That it factor, man. Like if you're gonna shoot for the stars, man, reach for the moon. And that's what I would do for Willis, for trade up. That's the only one I would trade up for. Trading back, that's when I start thinking about Desmond Ridder. That's when I start thinking about, because Desmond Ridder is the best processor in all of college football, and not just this draft class. He's the best processor in all of college football. He's a winner. He's a leader. He's a father. His responsibilities are more than just himself. He has to go home. He has to take care of his I don't know if his fiance or wife. I know they were engaged. And then be a father. People don't understand that takes a lot of devotion. And he's still the first one in the building, the last one out the building. He still knows defenses as soon as he lines up. Like, he can pre-snap, post-snap, adjust. The issue that I have with Ridder is, for 4 years of great starts, of getting better, he has not fixed the disconnect between his lower and upper body. And that causes a dysfunction and a lack of harmony. And with that, it's going to take time. The only way you can get past that is taking time, more reps, and not just game reps, because he's actually the only person out of the draft that if he didn't get game reps, he could still get better. You know what I'm saying? Like, some guys, like Malik, needs those game reps in order to learn how this NFL thing and this big boy league is. Desmond Ridder knows that. He has that. But he needs to get in harmony with his body. I mean, like, he's great. He's great inside, middle of the field. But once he has to go outside and those hips have to turn, right? That's when his heel does not plant. That's when his front foot gets toesy. Like, I'm gonna do that. I'm famous for showing the feet. So his foot does not
only
plant.
fans with that.
His toe. He gets toesy in the front, and that causes instability, and it deactivates the hip rather than engages the hip. And if you've ever played baseball, if you ever played even freaking golf, man, you need that torque, you need that hip movement, right?
Yes, you do.
That's what he lacks. And the only way you get that is by recalibrating his muscle memory. So in order to do that, he has to be in that gym. Has to take yoga, aerobics, whatever he has to do. But he's physically gifted and mentally ready to be a quarterback. But it's just that dysfunction and disharmony inside of his own body. He works against himself too much.
I think you're absolutely right about that, Michael. One thing you've seen with Desmond Ridder on film, especially when things start breaking down, he throws off the back foot. It's when accuracy gets all over the place. I've heard before that people are talking about he needs to completely re-engineer his throwing mechanics, and I think that's a load of crap.
Not the throwing mechanics.
No,
not the throwing mechanics. It's all downstairs.
Right. I think it was Jesse Palmer. It was a former NFL quarterback who's been training Desmond Ridder. He said the exact same thing. He was like his weight distribution or something. That's the one thing he needs to work on. Like it's just off sometimes, and that's what kind of leads to him being erratic with his throws, especially early on in games. He said it seems like his accuracy kind of comes as the game goes on. But so yeah, I mean,
let's keep it with you, Reed. Is there a player that you would trade up for in this first round, and what player would you trade down for?
So, I mean, I'm almost in the same boat where it's like you see Malik Willis, he has these elite traits. And if any of these quarterbacks is going to boom, I mean, you want to bet on that person. That guy's that has elite, rare traits. And also Kenny Pickett. I mean, if the coaching staff really does feel comfortable with Kenny Pickett, I'm all for that. If they want to trade up, then I'm okay. Yeah, I like Kenny Pickett a lot. And then trading down, I was going to go with Desmond Ridder as well. So it's hard. I mean, the only other thing I would say is maybe you could throw a Matt Corral should go higher than that, and I'm not really too sold on him anyway. Like this quarterback class is so weird. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Desmond Ridder too. We got to trade back up. So
yeah, personally, I would
trade
not.
Down.
I would not trade up for any of these quarterbacks. I don't think any of them are ready to the point where you can trade up and they can play year one. I don't think Washington is good enough or in a position like the 49ers that they can trade up in a bunch of picks in order to move up for a quarterback that they don't have to play year one. And kind of like how Trey Lance was last season, I think Malik Willis needs a year, a lot like Trey Lance does. So I don't think that anybody would be willing. I'm not in that position to go up and trade. But if we're going to trade down, I think that puts you in a really good position to be able to go get a guy like Nakobe Dean, to get a guy like Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah, because we've seen this free agent class of linebacker. It's not all that great. And like Devondre Campbell is one of the better linebackers, and he just had a Snapchat showing that he's back at Green Bay. So it looks like he's going to be resigning. So the draft is going to be where you're going to need your linebackers. I would like to go down that route. Look, everyone knows I love Desmond Ridder. I would love to be able to get Desmond Ridder on the back end of that first round. I just don't think it's going to be possible. I think somebody is smart enough to see, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, that he could be plug and play number one quarterback for them, like they did with Big Ben. When I watched Desmond Ridder's film, he reminds me of a young Big Ben, where you could stick him in and say, look, I understand you're not ready yet, 100%, but look, grow with this team, and we're going to give you a great defense, a solid running game, and just iron out from there. And that's what that blossomed into a Super Bowl for them. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of with you. I wouldn't trade up for any of these quarterbacks. The only scenario I would trade up in is if Kenny Pickett is gone within the first 8 picks, and then you got to get in front of Denver to get a guy like Malik Willis. That would be my only trade-up scenario right there. But, yeah, as far as, like, who you can get, like, if you stay pat or trade back, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't that sold on Desmond Ridder, but the more that I've kind of watched him and heard people talk about him, Kyle's kind of sold him a little bit more on me, then I wouldn't mind them getting like a guy at 11, maybe a Jameson Williams, maybe a Drake London, maybe a Nakobe Dean if he's there somehow.
We can't go linebacker.
I know. People will go crazy, but Nakobe Dean is that dude. But even if you mentioned a guy like Derek Stingley, who I remember as a freshman,
his freshman year was unreal.
He's going to be the next Darrell Revis.
Yeah.
He's a top 5 pick. He's locked in. Now it's kind of like, he might get outside the top 10. Who knows?
I saw a PFF mock with him at number 1 yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. So I would either trade up maybe 2-3 spots maximum to get a guy like Malik Willis. But my dream scenario would be either stay pat at 11 or trade back a couple spots, get some more picks, and then trade back into their first round and get a guy like Desmond Ridder for that 5th-year option.
Yeah. Now our next.
I apologize. My dog is going crazy.
It's fine. Your dog just wants to be on air, and I completely understand that. But Haas, Michael, I'm going to keep this with you. This is a question from our guy, Commander OC. Thank you, Commander. He wants to know, what's your go-to statistic that you look for in a QB?
Go-to statistic. You know what? I use statistics with a grain of salt. And it's just because it's like the way they kind of put things together. I did something on for somebody the other day. They put a graph out, right? And I'm gonna answer the question in a second. I just want to kind of give you some background for
context. I got you.
Context. So they put a graph, and the graph showed every quarterback drafted the last like 10, 15 years or something like that, and who excelled, who didn't, who was like all this from where they were college when they came out. Josh Allen's the only one at the bottom that was like really, really raw that kind of flew up, right?
Okay.
And I told him, I said, in order for this to be accurate in the assessment, then that means it has to be applied to every game, to every pass snap. You have to determine the win-loss battle between protection and pursuit, and the win-loss battle between receiver and defender. And then you have to know where the play was intended to go. So that's my one thing about stats. If I have to pick a stat, it would probably be pressure, like throws under pressure.
My man.
If I had to.
Honestly, Commander, you know me. I don't look at stats at all. I try to let the film talk to me and be able to kind of show me what I'm looking for out of a quarterback. But if I'm going to say anything, I guess the stat that I look for is sacks, because I think that sacks are indicative of, you could say a poor offensive line, but I think sacks are indicative of processing, what you're able to see, know what you're looking at, knowing where the outlets are, because you should always be hitting your checkdowns, and checkdowns are the number one way for a quarterback to be able to get out of sack situations. We learned that from RG3. Remember, everyone talked about how bad this offensive line was when RG3 was here. He leaves and goes to Cleveland, and Kirk Cousins gets sacked 3 more times than RG3 did, and RG3 played in only 3 games. And Kirk played the entire season, which it wasn't the offensive line issue. It was the quarterback processing, getting the ball out of his hands, helping us offensive line out in that capacity. For me, it's sacks, but I don't really go into statistics that much. Do you? What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I'm not really a stats guy. I'm more of a hands-on, like an eyes guy. I like to see and kind of like know what I see on film. But I was gonna say completion percentage, but I'm gonna modify that, and I'm gonna say your intermediate and your downfield, like your big time throws, your 30 plus, 20 plus yard throws percentage. Just because completion percentage can be skewed, because look at a guy like Alex Smith. If you're throwing everything 5 yards, lateral passes, you're gonna have 60-70% completions every single game, and it's gonna be like, oh man, he's just doing his thing, but like, no, you're not actually gaining yardage. But with a guy like, say, Pat Mahomes, who consistently throws the ball intermediate down the field, but mixes in obviously the short passing game, the quick game as well. So I would say if you're within that 62+% range between your intermediate and your downfield throws, that's a stat that I can work with, because obviously you can get better with accuracy, but your accuracy is not really going to get worse. It's not really going to fall off. It can only improve, I would say. So if you can have that intermediate to downfield passing game, especially in today's NFL, I definitely think that's a big stat to look into for a quarterback.
Right. So I'm right there with all you guys. You can't really go off stats. Stats can be so misleading. I mean, you look at it, the old saying used to be, because accuracy seems to be the most important factor for a quarterback. The old saying used to be, you can't teach accuracy, but then you had somebody like Josh Allen come in there and completely dump all over that, because he's just completely elevated his game and changed himself.
Good point. It's a great point.
And then the old thing used to be, you wanted your quarterback, what was it? It was the old Bill Parcells way, where it was like you want him to start at least 3 years, but then you have somebody like Cam Newton goes in there and just dumps all over that. He started 1 year, and then he won MVP, he went to a Super Bowl. He was very successful. So I guess, like, aside from what you guys are saying, maybe you could kind of look at starts, unless the guy has an unreal one season where it's just like you see what he can do. Maybe you want him to be a little seasoned at this point, but other than that, you just got to use your eyes. Like you got to know what you see, because Patrick Mahomes had a low completion percentage in college. And look at it. I mean, he does things that nobody's ever done before. Like, it's just it's tough. A lot of factors.
To piggyback off of that, Reed, Commander's OC's next question was, which free agent or tradable veteran or rookie quarterback draftees have the highest of that stated statistic? I know that we didn't really use them, but is there a player or veteran or rookie?
So veteran, I mean, in terms of starts, I mean, I guess obviously then he would have to go like the Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson route. You know what I'm saying? No, but it's I don't know. I don't have it off the top of my head. But when you look at the rookies, I mean, Kenny Pickett started forever. Desmond Ritter started forever. And then you watch the film. Kenny Pickett, I think, had better accuracy this season. The completion percentage, I believe, says that, and the film also says that. But you also see different traits with Desmond Ritter. He has a stronger arm than Kenny Pickett, so it's really just all about what you want and what you think fits your offense. But,
and the last one is, are these quarterbacks that you're talking about, are they really a good fit for Washington?
I think both of those guys would be in terms of the
agree.
rookies. Of course, those vets, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, you could plug them in anywhere and they would be successful. So, but I think Pickett and Ritter would be. Yeah.
What do you think, Michael Haas?
I think all of the above. Like I actually think that Sam Howell is a really great fit. Just from the Air Coryell offense variation that Scott runs. But I don't like him at 11. And if I had to trade back, I would get Ritter above him. So,
yeah, right. He scares me around 1 for sure.
Yeah, So, yeah. Yeah. I would have to say that.
I guess the sack total thing, I guess the best quarterback in that whole list, I would say OC is probably Kenny Pickett. I think Ritter is up there as well. One thing with Malik Willis, he's incredibly, he's electric. Like he could take any play and turn it into a positive, and it's a mismatch for defenses. They have to account for one defender for Malik Willis at all times because of his running ability, but I think he does get himself into a lot of sack situations, and I know one person criticized it because the right tackle misses his block, and Malik Willis gets destroyed. And somebody wrote, well, why are you going on Malik Willis about this? Well, the first part is, it's the fourth quarter. He's been getting sacked the entire game, and he's right-handed, which means at right tackle, he can see what's happening there. By that point in the game, you should know to get the ball out of your hands. And that's kind of the way I view it. So, but if any of them are going to be fits, Commander OC, I do think it's Ritter, just because he fits the mold of what a skinnier Cam Newton. If you're looking for somebody to come into your system that you've done before, I think Cam Newton would mimic a lot of what Scott Turner and Ron Rivera want to do out of this offense. He's tall, he's long, he can run after the play, he can extend the play, he can hit his checkdowns, he has good progression, he can see things. He has accuracy issues just like Cam Newton, but he makes the most of those situations. He just needs some good quality pass catchers to be able to be on the receiving end of those. But
what's crazy about the Malik Willis sack thing is there's like, I want to say like 25%, about 20, just under 25%, because I got to redo the math in my head. But like 20 to 25% are because of Willis. Now, but then I started, when I was going over tape again and again and again, right? I found something very interesting. So Liberty, they don't use a short passing game at all, not even a hot read. So they're the only time they don't go intermediate to deep level passing is when it's 2-minute offense or goal line.
No. So do you think that that's the coaching staff just saying that Malik Willis doesn't go through his progressions enough, or is that just Hugh Freeze's offense? Is that just
I think Hugh Freeze, I think he's like, hey, let's no risk it, no biscuit. You get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I think that he's a little more aggressive than I thought he was. Because
it's genius. It's genius, Michael. And I'll tell you this why. Malik Willis, his legs, that's electrifying, right? If all of your routes are deep and if they're not open, what's Malik Willis going to do? If those DBs are 15, 20 yards downfield, now Malik Willis has 20 to 30 yards to work with. If you're running intermediate short stuff a lot, those defenders are going to be around that box for Malik to run into. I think it's genius on Hugh Freeze's part, but I think that's a great bit by you there.
Yeah,
but if you think about it, and if you think about it too, is that makes him hold on to the ball longer too.
Yes, it does.
Right, exactly. So of course he's sacked more, right?
Yeah. And now to wrap up this episode, guys, we got one more question, and this is from Scott Hartley. He says, I know you guys grind film. Do any of you, Mike or Reed, have any later round sleepers, third round or past, that you are looking for as sleepers in the draft? He has Leo Chanel, linebacker out of Wisconsin, or Christian Harris out of Alabama, if he falls to third round, but he doesn't expect the team to have a first or second pick. So, Reed, is there any prospects, third round and beyond, that you're looking at for Washington to grab as sleepers?
Yeah, can I name 2?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this person, the combine depends on a lot. He had a very good Senior Bowl, but Christian Watson, the wide receiver from North Dakota State, he brings size. He's agility. He's fast. This guy, he's a good catcher. He uses his hands very well. He attacks the football. He's got all the traits that you look for too. So he's very interesting. But I think he may end up going round 2. I would imagine that's will probably fall after the combine. But another one at running back. If you want to look for a good late running back, a guy who's proven a lot, a guy who can do it all, Tyler Goodson. Is that his name from Iowa? Yeah, Tyler Goodson. Yeah, Tyler Goodson out of Iowa. Yeah, Tyler Goodson out of Iowa. He could. I think he'll be Goody. Yeah, I think he'll be a mid to late round. Probably not mid, more of a late round pick. He's if you go back, look at the film, look at the stats. He's caught the football well. He's also ran the football very well. I'm surprised that he doesn't get more. He's got good size. He's got a good body. No, I mean, it is what it is. You're allowed to say that in football. He's got a great body, actually.
You say that about a lot of people, though, Reed. So
I do. Yeah, I do say that about like
so Michael Haas, are there some guys that you're targeting for Washington that you think would be a good fit in a third round or beyond that are projected?
Oh yeah. So I've gotten really big into the HBCU guys.
Oh, yeah.
I really wanted to focus on this. So I was having this conversation, I want to say like in November, with Adam and Neva.
Mm-hmm.
That's my boy.
Love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we both were just like crushing film at the same time of the same person, not knowing we were looking at the same person. Right. And Joshua Williams, Fayetteville State. Man, that boy is something. So besides his like 6'2", 6'3" frame, you're talking about 40-inch vertical. You're talking about 4.4 speed, those long 33, 34-inch arms. Like he is something, man. And I think he could play nickel, outside, whatever. I think he's that good because his hips are so fluid. When he moves, like it's not just his back pedal, it's how he turns. And when he turns, his shoulders and his eyes, like his eyes are on the quarterback and his shoulders are facing receiver. That's just natural God-given ability.
Yeah,
then the other one is another HBCU guy, safety Marquise Bell. Like he won't hear him call until like round 6, but that boy is serious.
Isn't he 6'3", 6'4" or something? Marquise Bell?
I don't know if he's
bigger,
that
right?
big. I think he's like 6'1".
Okay.
But he could be a little bit bigger.
Central Florida. Where was he?
Yeah. Like he could be bigger than that. I know. I didn't notice his size on film as much. I just noticed how violent he is at the point of attack, how instinctive he is. Like in middle of routes, right? You'll see him just like jump things the way D'Angelo Hall did to Jay Cutler when he got that 3 or 4 picks in the game.
Yep.
That's how Marquise is, man. Like he's very instinctive, he's very violent, very physical. He has a lot of God-given traits as well. You're talking about the 4.4 range as well. I like that kid a lot.
Yeah. That is fantastic. Hall. I am so confident in my late rounders I wrote out here that I'm letting all 3 of y'all go in front of me. Who do you got, Hall?
Yeah, a guy that I think could potentially be there in the 3rd round and has the potential to come in, maybe kind of that Benjamin St. Juste type of role where he might not be thrust in. He might have to be thrust in, not really thrust in, but I might have to be thrust into a starter position. But
I am uncomfortable with how many times you're saying thrust right now.
I know. I'm a lot thrusted over here. But he could definitely maybe work his way into the rotation and maybe become that starter down the road. And that's Tariq Castro Fields from Penn State. He's a cornerback. He's like I said, he's getting comparisons to Marlon Humphreys. I don't think he's going to become Marlon Humphreys, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Did I freeze?
No, I can still hear you.
Oh, all right, cool. So he's speed. He has great speed, great ball skills. He's getting Marlon Humphrey comparison. So definitely looking for him in the 3rd round and potentially be a starter down the road, maybe in his 2nd year of his career.
Yeah, I got a couple listed here, Scott. My first one is Romeo Dobbs, the wide receiver from Nevada, 6'2", 200 pounds. Played with Carson Strong in that air heavy,
Productive
passing,
as hell.
a pass happy attack. I think that is somebody in the later rounds at wide receiver. If you haven't found talent there, either through free agency or the early round of the draft, like you're saying, Scott, like we're trading away our first and second rounders, I think Romeo Doubs is somebody you could really lean on in that capacity if you're looking for talent in the later ends. Then Alec Lindstrom, the center from Boston College. He's 6'3", 298 pounds. He does play a little bit high. His pad level is high when he comes off the ball. He gets pushed back a lot, but I feel like that's going against one techniques. And in the pros, I think he'd probably be a better guard. And living with Brandon Sheriff, I think that is somebody you could plug in at guard and could be a backup center for you and to move around that kind of chest piece, because versatility is the one thing we've always heard Rivera talk about ever since he's gotten here. My other two
Position flex.
Yep, is James Mitchell, the tight end from Virginia Tech, the Hokies, baby. 6'3", 255 pounds. He's kind of like that F tight end. He can move everywhere along because he's very athletic. He's a fantastic catcher of the football. He needs to work on his blocking a little bit, but the reason why he's a late rounder is because he got injured after the second game this season. And so if you're looking for somebody that has that boom potential and that later ends to that tight end spot, I think James Mitchell is perfect for you. And then my last one, I promise, guys, this one's great. Carl Turner, I'm from Nevada, the other tight end there, 6'6", 240 pounds. This kid is incredible. Red zone threat. He had 10 touchdowns this season at Nevada. Very, very productive. Somebody, if you want to bring somebody in, kind of like a Ricky Steels-Jones kind of thing, an athletic freak that can catch the football, needs to work on his blocking just a little bit, but he can, just like James Mitchell, you can line him up anywhere, almost like Jordan Reed-esque, but not as quick, not as twitchy as Jordan Reed. But dude, my goodness, would he be a red zone threat? And that is something that the Washington offense has been really needing, especially this past season. They were one of the lower ends in red zone conversion rate among the NFL.
Real fast too. By the way, I was thinking of a different late round safety, not Marquise Bell, so my bad. There's a couple of them that are like 6'3", 6'4", like the kid from USC and like some of these guys. But also watch out for those HBCU guys over the next 5 years with what Dion's been doing down there, and then some of these big recruits, these 5-star recruits saying that they're going to be going to these colleges.
Yep.
There's going to be, how long do you guys think it's going to be before we have a first rounder with some of these naturally talented kids going down there?
2 years at most.
You think so?
Yeah. With
Yeah.
Dion
It's
coaching him, with
crazy.
Dion's connections with the NFL and everything, I think that'd be 2 years at most.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Michael.
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I
What you
got
got?
something. So I know you're talking about Romeo Doubs, but have you studied Khalil Shakur tape?
Yes, dude.
No, I
Khalil
have not.
Shakur
That
is
dude is
so
filthy,
hot watching.
man.
Yeah. That dude's going
His
to be a
route running,
steal. Yes.
Yeah, like
How do you pronounce it?
Like
Khalil Shakur.
Shakur.
Tupac Shakur. It's like
Okay.
SHA.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, just in case our listeners as well want to be able to watch it.
Yeah, he's man. Like when I'm so impressed with him as a technician, and I'm like, if I had to go round 3, I think about, like, I like Romeo Doubs, but I think about Wan'Dale Robinson, but he's on the smaller side. But Khalil Shakur, man, that boy can get open. Open.
I just want to put this caveat in there, Scott. When I made up this list, this was looking at like 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders. Okay, wasn't looking at 3rd or above. You know what I mean? I understand that's the way you phrased the question, but yeah, I don't think Romeo Doubs should be in the 3rd rounder. Of course, he could obviously jump up, but I'm just trying to give out some sleepers out there because I watched some film with some guys saying, man, are they impressive. But Michael, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and joining us for this episode, sir. Everyone knows you on the Twitter sphere, breaking down all those quarterbacks. I mean, dude, I've talked to Desmond Ritter like ad nauseum on Twitter, and Michael will come in with his breakdowns and showing you like where his footwork is according to where his ball placement is in his hand. It's really down to a science and in detail. It's awesome to watch. If you guys haven't already, make sure you go follow Michael. And if just in case anyone watching Michael doesn't follow you already, if you want to plug your Twitter handle.
I think it's at Michael Haas 1987. I think so, or 3587.
Yep.
I don't know, something like that. You say at Michael Haas. It's not too many people that have my name.
Yeah, that's
It's
a good
2
point.
A's.
That's how it is with me too. It's Michael Haas 3587. You are correct on Twitter.
Oh.
Michael, I can't thank you for coming on here and joining us finally. It's been too long. We've been trying a long time to be able to get you on here. I'm glad we were able to do it, brother.
My man.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And make sure you guys are commenting your answers to these questions. And Which of the Burgundy boys do you think fits Washington Commanders players? Which one do we fit and why? I want you guys to answer that in the comments and just give us your 2 cents, man. We'd love to hear from you. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle. And Hall, you're muted.
Yeah.
Well, not
I'm
muted. We
Reed.
couldn't hear you.
And this
That's fine.
episode was brought to you by Coca-Cola. They are our sponsor. Only podcast in the world sponsored by them. We're making a name for them. It's a cool soft drink. You guys check it out.
All right, everybody. We will see you all on Friday. Thank you so much for watching Washington Football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington Football. Woo!